Popcorn therapy. 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 Popcorn therapy.
Welcome to Popcorn Therapy. This is episode 2, and I'm James Pillion.
I'm Kane Sennis.
And, well, I guess we're back to talk about a little bit of everything and a little bit of nothing.
I didn't really think past nailing the intro.
It's Friday night here in King's Cross.
Friday
and,
night. What's the date?
Shit. What have we got? What have we got,
don't even have
ladies?
the
We
date
got,
on your
oh, my
laptop.
God. Jan 3rd.
Jan 3rd.
2020.
The third day of a new decade.
Holy fucking macaroni.
Yeah, it's weird. It was good. New Year's Day was great. Just chilled, had a lovely day. Saw
Yeah.
3 women, which I think we might
Did you say
talk about
3
later.
women?
Sorry, Little Women. It's fucking confusing.
What decade are we in, Kane? You know, it's not the 70s,
And
man.
also, isn't 3 women a vastly different tone of film?
Now, speaking of New Year's Eve, you and I saw each other.
We did.
We had a little bit of a boogie.
It's like we crossed paths.
Yep.
You came from this party. I was at this party.
Yep.
You came over. We crossed paths. We hung for a bit.
Yep.
It was fun. It was grand. And then it was like on to the next phase of the night.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
what it felt like.
Yeah, we rang in the new year. Well, I didn't make the fireworks, but you lived to tell the tale, and we had a little hug after. But then
So then New Year's Day.
Yep.
Great day. And then the last couple of days, just I'm trying to get my headspace back in a work mode and try and get back at it. Either this weekend or Monday.
I was curious after your rave review of Greta Gerwig's Little Women.
Man, I don't know if it was still like the bubblies from the night before or whatever, but I just 10 minutes into that thing and I just choke up and start crying. Whoa. So I'd seen the 90s version. I haven't seen the 1949 version, which I was just reading about that. Yep, with Elizabeth Taylor, and I think Vivian Leigh. And I hadn't, but I remember the Winona Ryder version.
Directed by
Gillian
Armstrong. Gillian
Oh,
Armstrong.
was it?
Yes, it's our shout out, Gillian Armstrong. Australian fucking
that's
titan
awesome.
In the business. You know, she's like one of the few women that has had an illustrious career from down under.
Yeah.
You know, a wonder from down under.
Yeah. So you had Susan Sarandon playing the mum in the 90s version. Now you get Laura Dern.
Yep. Woof woof.
I had expectations in the sense that it's Greta Gerwig. Her first film, Lady Bird, was bloody Oscar nominated as a first film as a director.
Fucking incredible.
And I'm going, but shit. I mean, what if like suddenly she's doing a movie that's been made a bunch of times before?
Well, I'm gonna fucking push you on this because I really want to know what it was about the film, but sort of more than that, Greta Gerwig's intentions underlying the story and the way she shot it and its casting, etc. But what was it that moved you to tears? One, but made you feel like fucking ragdoll in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, that was 10 minutes in. Fuck. So that was like nothing sad had happened, and sad things happen in the film that are legitimately sad. By the time that came, I was like there was a row of teenage girls in front of me.
Yeah.
And I was the 33-year-old man, and they weren't crying, and I was like they might have, like I might have seen like a hand move up to an eye or something, but I had my shirt in front of my mouth like this, and I was trying to not audibly make those gasping sounds when you're sobbing. That's the kind of crying. Like it wasn't just like, man, that movie like really moved me. It was
Has
like,
that ever happened to you
like,
before?
Oh shit! And then like if someone heard me, did someone think there was like a freaking turkey in the row behind them? That's how I sounded. It was I was a blubbering mess, and
God.
I it just caught me off guard, man. Like I mean, I went with my girlfriend Hannah, and she, you know, the 90s Little Women was her favorite film. So it was like me going to see The Dark Knight.
Wow.
Or me going to see Batman Begins and being like, fuck, this is the Batman I've been waiting for.
Wow.
So there was a lot of hype for her, and she cried.
Mm-hmm.
She admitted later that she kind of started crying around the same time I did, but mine just came pouring out. So maybe our crying styles are just different. But I wasn't expecting it, so it really caught me. And I think what it was just... There's just such a, almost like a Terrence Malikian sense of capturing beautiful innocence, and it's melancholic, nostalgic, but it whisks you off in a spell, right? And there's the Alexander Desplat score, which I didn't realize it was him until after. But it's like Days of Heaven-esque.
Which we
Like
were just
it's
talking
modern.
about on the last episode.
Right.
Was your
Is
favorite film
my
of all
favorite film.
time?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely something. Yeah, and it's a Civil War homefront story about what
so
the women do.
contextual,
Yeah, and it's this mother who's left to raise her 4 kids. There's no father figure, and right at that time of their life when they're falling in love for the first time, when they're in their mid to late teens, and then it cuts to 7 years later. But what Gerwig does in it, which none of the other versions had done, and I don't think this is a spoiler, is that it's non-chronological. She does a little bit of a...
Oh, she's just
does a
playing
bit
with
of
time.
She plays with time to create that feeling of nostalgia. So something 7 years later, kind of touching something from the house that you've returned to, and then going back in time to when you were 7 years younger and the world was pure and you didn't worry about anything. Yeah. And it's right at that time when you go from, say, like 16, 17 to 24, 25. You've already been slightly broken by life, just enough to like to reminisce when you were 16, 17 and just having fun with your friends and coming of age. So it captures that feeling, and that's just what got to me.
I mean, I haven't seen the film, but I was just reading a really interesting article in the Hollywood Reporter about how Gerwig had met with Amy Pascal, the former head of Sony.
She was head of Sony,
head of Sony.
And now she got Pascal Pictures or something.
That's right. Now she's just an independent producer,
Yeah.
A real big timer, making some really interesting films. But that Gerwig came to her before Lady Bird, wanting to do that first, and
That's
just sort of talking about how she had to remake this movie. She had to remake Gillian Armstrong's 1994 version because she felt that there was something really prescient about the timing.
Just like I felt like Olivia Wilde did with Booksmart. It's like it felt like an artist who's looking back on their youth,
right?
Like George Lucas did with American Graffiti, and just like there's so many great films that just capture youth, and she did that with Lady Bird. But then, so she goes from something so personal, and then she does like an IP project, and I'm kind of at first thinking, but you're like, you can do anything.
I see.
Why
I
are
see
you
where
doing
you're
the
coming
IP
from.
project? Like you're like you're a very personal filmmaker, and that's what you've established with like your first film out the gate. But it totally, I saw it and I was like, I get it now. Like I really get it. Like she's approached it from such a modern lens, and the 49 version, which I haven't seen, but it's one of my sister-in-law's favorite films, and she was telling me that in 49 was still so feminist. Wow. And you know the lead daughter role, Jo, she still never wanted to marry even back then. And I was like, that's interesting, because I thought they had tweaked the ending of this new one to kind of give to reflect modern times, and then they also found a way to give you the ending that you still wanted from the book.
I see.
So she didn't bastardize, like she didn't ruin it for fans, but she put a modern spin on it and kind of gave you...
She put her spin.
Kind of was like, take it how you want to take... Yeah, and it's just really smart, and she's... I can totally see why. I mean, I imagine that was one of the films that formed her childhood.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was like a really formative text.
And so you know, you could almost go down this line of thought, which is... You're Greta Gerwig. You've made that film. You can make anything next. Do you remake a favorite film of yours?
Well, I've always wanted to remake my favorite film, which we've never spoken about.
Can I guess it?
Yes.
Is it Paper Moon?
No.
Oh, but that's up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's up there.
Is it 5 Easy Pieces?
No.
Oh.
But it's in that realm. It's that new Hollywood. It's early 70s.
The Last Picture Show?
No. I mean, I love Bogdanovich, but I actually haven't watched enough of his later work. It's a little movie by a director called Jerry Schatzberg called Scarecrow.
Oh, that's... Wow.
Yeah.
Has that been your favorite movie for
It's
a while?
Yes, for
Really?
a while. Yeah.
Like it's held the number one slot?
Yeah. Only because it really stands out for me as just like a piece of like amazing storytelling. Amazing actors, Gene Hackman, Al Pacino. Like really young, but like full of so much honesty, I think.
Yeah.
And
gotta watch that.
fuck yeah, write that
Gotta watch
motherfucker
that,
down.
man.
What's so honest about it? I think a really important story for this current moment, as it will be, I believe, for the future. But it's about male fragility. It's a story about two bums on the road hitchhiking from one side of America to the other.
Wow.
And they kind of just discover that they're going the same way, and they make a kind of an uneasy friendship that turns into like a beautiful kind of brotherhood, sorry.
So it's kind of like the sequel to Midnight Cowboy, you know, if he makes spoilers.
Spoilers, yeah, that's right.
He ain't in good shape. Dustin Hoffman ain't in good shape at the end.
Actually, no, it's a very sad ending.
very
It's
sad.
really tragic ending.
In Scarecrow?
In
No.
Scarecrow.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's that very new
Don't.
Hollywood. It's that
Yeah, yeah.
that Chinatown.
Yeah. Dark endings were what people wanted.
Well, it was
that
a
wild?
reflection of a time, you know.
Yeah.
America had lost its first war. I've been re-listening to Easy Rider's Raging Bulls. Peter
yeah.
Biskind's like
Yeah, it's a great
incredible just book on
a great
the
book.
late 60s, early 70s in Hollywood.
And it's
fantastic.
bookended by the reason it's called that, right, is because Easy Rider was 69.
Yep.
So it was the beginning of the decade.
course,
Raging Bull was
Raging Bulls is-
1980. So he
my
chose
God.
the
That's right.
the notable films that bookend the 70s.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great
Why did I bring it up?
Because talking about like, were people just looking more for dark stuff in the 70s because of what was going on?
Right. So essentially, so much was changing so quickly. Almost, it kind of feels like that in our present moment.
Well, and like nationalism and post-truth, post-Trump.
Well, that's very true as well.
You
But
know, we're heading into a new era.
you know, it took a while, but the culture started to catch up, or rather, the art started to catch up to the culture. And what was so interesting in a part I was reading just today is talking about how George Lucas made American Graffiti, his second feature film that was a real kind of divergence if you look at just the rest of his film history, or his filmography rather.
Well, he starts out with THX 1138.
Yes,
which
that's right.
is the first film that he makes with Francis Ford Coppola.
Yep,
he
producing.
produces it.
And then Francis essentially tells him,
which is a sci-fi.
which is like a real robot,
It's a sci-fi.
like sci-fi
It's way into the
futuristic
future.
drama,
This guy escapes from like this futuristic kind of
very kind of dystopian.
yeah.
Um,
Blade Runner-ish. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But essentially, you know, his rationale to making this movie about early 60s life in small town America, it's, you know, kids driving their sort of hot rods all around town and just going to the local dine-in and just having burgers and shakes. He wanted to make a picture where you went in and you felt better afterwards, because you know the culture at that time was the opposite.
Yeah.
You went in maybe having had a pretty good day and walk out feeling like the world is
So
ending.
he kind of knew people. He had a suspicion that people needed this.
Yes.
And people don't know what they want until they get it. Yeah. So everyone before that had just kept going along, being like, these dark movies are making money, so let's just keep making them. That's the vibe right now.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually was like, no, fuck that. People always want to feel happy. They've just gotten used to not having that around.
Exactly. But it was interesting. I think they almost needed to
Smart guy.
miss it before they could appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, the 70s, particularly more the late 70s, introduced like real broad comedies. People like Mel Brooks, people like Ivan Reitman. They ushered in a whole new era that really, without them, people like Will Ferrell, and they just wouldn't be as powerful.
I was like, for the longest time, and I think that's kind of what we bonded over was 70s American films, right?
Yeah.
And that was my like film education through film school, and that was kind of like the first film I made. Like I just wanted to do something that was like a psychodrama or whatever in the 70s style, slow character burn. And now I look at it and I go, those films will always have a place for me. But now I'm suddenly like, I was always into the 80s films, and like I grew up with Last Action Hero. Well, Last Action Hero is a bit later, but I grew up with Ghostbusters and Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Indiana
A lot of
Jones and all that.
popcorn movies.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Me too.
And now I've been finding myself going back to my childhood because that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And that's now shed a light on more sophisticated 80s stuff that I didn't know about, like John Hughes comedies. And even though that's very, highbrow, lowbrow, right? It's like the original kind of, that's where Booksmart comes from, right? It comes from those John Hughes movies. So, it's, but I've just got a far greater appreciation for that era of comedy now, and comedy horror, comedy action, comedy anything.
But don't you think that's also interesting that you just want to feel good?
You just can't, yeah. And so are we in a time now? That's obviously why superhero films have blown up. We all want to just feel like someone will fix this shit.
Right. Yeah.
And we can just relax. But I almost think it's not even feel good right now. It's almost just pure escapism.
Fuck, man. Yes, I felt this for a while, actually. I saw my first Marvel movie last year. I think the beginning or so of last year.
So you held out.
And through that time, I think I've watched so much of the Marvel universe.
Have you?
And
okay, nice.
It's been so many times where I'm just like, I just want to forget tonight. I just want to go somewhere else and just get lost in this fucking world.
But they do it well.
Oh my God, no, they do it.
You're blowing your load by the end of it.
Technicians, they've just like, it's incredible.
But it's
the world
not
they
just
build.
When everyone is saying, when the Scorseses and like the Francis Ford Coppolas of the world are saying, we're not denying their technique, and I fucking worship those guys.
Me too.
But I really like these Marvel movies. I really like most of them.
Yeah.
When I was going through the best films of the decade, I've got a couple Captain America films on there. They were instant rewatchables for me for a while, and I started to watch them whenever I just felt bad. And
as we've spoken about, and I think I just want to make it a real point, especially for people that are maybe just clicking on this episode, and they're just really not doing their homework. But fuck, like, this is popcorn therapy. It's just like these moments that just make us feel like we're gonna get through whatever the fucking day we had, or whatever's going on. Dude, I feel like the older I get, the more I just want to fall back into those moments, because being an adult, fucking, it's a kick in the pants, like, at the best of times.
Yeah, and you're like, I hate the term grow up. I hate when people say grow up.
Yeah.
Because I used to believe that.
Me too.
I used to believe that was a thing. Like, I should kill my childhood and any sense of joy and stuff that makes me happy, and I should just become like you, right? That's what growing up means.
Yep.
It's not my fault that you grew up. That sucks for you. But I constantly feel like for some reason that gets to me. And only lately, maybe the last couple of years, I'm 33 now. The last couple of years I've gone, you know what? I'm in my 30s now. I'm not newly 30 and worrying about my loss of youth from it's like, fuck that. That youth can always be with you. It's just a mindset.
It's a mindset.
Do you look back and kind of think about your life and what movies have meant to you at those different stages?
Totally.
Like how they summed up that awkward feeling of going through puberty or whatever. Like there's a movie that you connect to on that level that marks that, or whatever. Like things you had in common with your friends, and you had sleepovers, and you'd always watch that movie.
I remember watching Almost Famous when I was really young, and really identifying with the little kid, and just like the wonder that he felt when he like saw a beautiful woman, or just seeing his favorite fucking band, like that really existed for me. But in the minute, like the smallest fucking things of, I don't know, seeing a girl that I just like, an older girl that was like beautiful, and it's like, maybe I'll marry a girl like that one day. But you know that just that sense of wonder. And now I look at it and I see more of the adult life.
Right.
I watch the band and I'm like,
Yeah.
it sucks, man. Like to kind of have this feeling inside of you, but you have to be someone else.
Yeah.
You have to play a game. So it's funny,
Yeah.
like you see different things.
Oh, dude, I'm just thinking about fucking how dreamy Billy Crudup is in that movie.
Oh, dude, he is fucking.
I think that's top. That's top.
He's sunshine.
That's top 10 all time male.
I have to say,
roles
man,
for me.
Cameron Crowe, who the movie is based on, he's the little boy in the fucking.
Right, Patrick Fugit, dude.
That's
The detective, the detective assistant dude in Gone Girl.
Wait, what are you talking about?
The guy who's doing the case.
Oh
how
shit!
he's
But
always getting
you're talking
interviewed
about
by,
in the movie.
in the movie Gone Girl. That's Patrick Fugit, the same actor who was the
my
kid.
God,
He's grown up.
That's insane.
Yeah, he's grown up. He's like a character actor now.
Okay.
But I always think of that movie. I always go, dude, you had one of the greatest roles in cinema. Like, and he never became a star after that. He's like a character actor,
That's
but not
really
even really
interesting.
like a known character actor.
He was really good, and maybe it's just my upbringing, but he felt like a real every kid.
Yeah.
But like highly intelligent, but just an every kid, just a nerd, like curious, like
Yeah.
diffident.
Yeah, and not like a rat bag. Like he was a sweet kid.
He's a sweet kid.
He like cared to call his mum. Like it made me feel
Frances
like
McDormand, by the way,
Yeah.
like fuck.
yes.
Whoa.
And
Love her.
she's like this nervous wreck, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, dude. He's
Oh
the editor.
my God.
He's the magazine editor.
Yes.
Who are they writing for? It's not
Rolling
Rolling
Stone.
Stone.
Yeah, dude. And it's
Dude,
all based
it's a
on
great
real
movie.
people. And
Yeah.
he was a really tough rock critic. And I remember I was reading a book about one of the bands of that era, and they just hated him because he was so tough.
Oh, dude.
And he, it was that time where critics could make and break you. A couple of years ago, I discovered, I read this amazing book on Jann Wenner, who was the founder of Rolling Stone. It's an amazing book. It's called Sticky Fingers or something like that.
Okay.
It's really good, man. I'd highly recommend it. But
Sounds great.
it was just talking about how much they hated Led Zeppelin. Like, they just hated them.
Rolling Stone hated Led Zeppelin.
Rolling Stone.
Why? Because they would
hated-
never speak to them or something?
No, they just thought they were like a boring English band, and I was like, "You fuckers aged terribly." Like,
Led Zeppelin is fucking badass, but Pink Floyd blows my mind.
oh man,
It's like how there's always that trivia question. Not trivia, but there's always that question like, you a Beatles guy or Rolling Stones guy? Like you've got to pick one. Like it's in his character tests and stuff. And I always go Rolling Stones.
me too. But I think that says a lot about us.
I think it does.
Yeah.
It's a fucking good question.
But I love the Rolling Stones for a lot of reasons. But it's personal and professional. Man, Jean-Luc Godard made a fucking movie about them. Like fuck.
What was that?
So he made this movie called
it good
Sympathy
shit?
for the Devil.
I haven't
It's
seen
really
that. I've never
wild,
seen that.
man. I went to a real French New Wave.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
so Jean-Luc Godard, like an amazing French filmmaker.
Was a critic. He was a critic. Like
Cahiers du Cinéma.
Cahiers du Cinéma.
Cahiers du Cinéma.
Yes.
So him and François Truffaut, they both wrote for it. And he was a groundbreaking director, and his early work is fantastic. But he kind of he fell in with the rise of Mao Zedong and sort of the Chinese Communist Party. And by the late 60s, those films get real out there, man. Like, even Sympathy for the Devil. I can see the Rolling Stones getting behind it just because, like, it's far out, man. But apart from that, it's like, it really makes no sense whatsoever. Sorry, let me just say, little love, hearts going out to Anna Karina, who was, I believe, his second wife, maybe first wife, but she was his collaborative partner on 7 of his movies. And she was just like this drop-dead gorgeous.
She passed away recently.
Yeah,
Yes.
drop-dead gorgeous Danish, French actress. And the love of my life in my early 20s, man. I would have murdered someone for the chance just to talk to her.
I read your
Yes, my
your,
newsletter.
newsletter.
Yeah, man. I
I was going to actually ask you about that. I was going to ask you if you really were heartbroken, or if that just sounded good to write.
Oh,
like were you actually that obsessed at that young an age with a French new wave actress? That's badass, man. That's like legit deep cuts.
No, I was
falling
like
in love with that.
No,
cinema.
but I was a fucking nerd, man. You know, when I was in my teens, and this is my later teens, sadly, 16, 17, the love of my life was finishing school on a Friday afternoon, going to the local video store, and they had a 7 for $11 sale. Oh, wow. 7 DVDs for $11.
Yeah.
That was my weekend, man.
Wow.
7 fucking movies. And it was the best. I was watching Alien and Jurassic Park and Blade Runner and Apocalypse Now.
So did you get through 7 films?
Dude, I don't know how I did it. I think, my sister and I, we would split it. But she keeps reminding me I wasn't very democratic. It was 5 films for me, 2 for her. One Christmas where I convinced her that a PlayStation was a good present for her to get for Christmas, and we all know who got the most use out of that.
That's like some Hannibal Lecter shit, dude.
Man, that was
real
real dark.
Natasha,
I love you, and
come sit with me.
I'm a terrible person.
Do you just want a Barbie like any other girl, or do you, great Natasha, want a box that brings infinite possibilities?
You know what's terrible, man? I was gaslighting my own sister, bro. Wow, what does that say about me?
You son of a bitch. I think we need to get her on here.
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
Have
you been watching Rick and Morty?
No, I'm still halfway through the last season.
You son of a bitch.
I stopped it. I will unequivocally tell anybody that it's the greatest animation. Well, I'd put BoJack first. But
An amazing show that I feel like I just have to say, if you haven't lived in LA, it might not be as relevant, but
yeah,
it's a great show.
For someone who's lived in LA and loves films,
Yep. Yes.
Right.
Yes. It is.
I mean, there's a spider in it called Quentin Tarantulino. It's so inventive, and then it's so dark.
I know I'm biased in saying this, but after having spent coming up on a decade in the business, but a few years in LA, it really is to me one of the kookiest industries I've ever read about or known about or just ever come across. Just the way it works and who's in power and who's hot, who's not.
But just think about, so when you're making a student film and it's like your friends from your class or in your crew and you're hanging out in someone's living room, someone's fucked up and they haven't picked up lunch and you're just like, oh dude, just order some fucking pizzas. Can we just get this shot? And everyone works overtime, no one's getting paid, and because you're kind of all friends.
Yep.
You know that you're all just there to kind of play make-believe. And just someone's dangling some shit from out of frame and someone's dressed up as something and it's all just fake.
Well, that's right. We're creating make-believe and there's a business out of it that's really quite lucrative. Now, not compared with its northern neighbor in Silicon Valley.
Think about the people it attracts. It attracts people that just want to play make-believe their whole lives.
So that's it. That's exactly it. People from all over the world are coming to one place. I mean, there's many places like this, but Hollywood is the most, sort of celebrated to be something, that really doesn't exist on paper.
Because what they were wasn't good enough.
Right.
So then you end up with a lot of those people unchecked, and then it's like Harvey Weinstein's exist in every industry.
Yes.
But there's something I think particular about watching him soak in the adulation and wanting to be in the paparazzi. He loved the red carpet.
Oh, he loved it.
Have you seen? I've been wanting to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
I watched on the plane back from New Zealand, or actually on the plane over and the way back because I had to stop it. I watched Untouchable, the new Harvey Weinstein doco.
Oh shit!
You got to check it out.
Wow.
Man, because there's something to hearing about everything and reading the newspapers and, listening to podcasts. But then you see, I think they use about 7 or so women that actually are like the cast that form the backbone of the interviews. And they're all like these victims of his. Watching them tell their stories and how it affected them. And one of the women being in she must be 70.
Oh my God.
She's his age. She's his age. So she's late 60s, early 70s. She's his age. But this was back when he was coming up as a promoter in the music business.
Oh, that's right. He had
and was like in his 20s or his early 30s or whatever. And was
him and his brother.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was like, we're going to fly to LA because we're going to get into the movie thing. And she was their first ever secretary. And she comes to LA with him. And he books a room that just happens to have 2 beds. And he's like, they couldn't get another room. And that was all a setup. And he just in the middle of the night was naked in her bed.
Fuck.
And pinned her down. And she's saying this as a 70-year-old woman. And she starts to choke up and cry. And the camera just holds. And you see how much it's affected her. And she goes, it's not just what he did. It's the fact that like I didn't trust anyone for decades. And the amount of relationships and love I missed out on in my life.
And can I just say...
And it just breaks your fucking heart.
I've really tried to stay out of it just because it bums the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
But that's what angers me. It's... Okay, yes, the act itself is despicable, but it's the years and years of just discomfort and PTSD. The notion that maybe I'm a piece of shit. Like it's that kind of self-loathing that's what he deserves to be fucking punished for.
And I mean, look, it's not pleasant viewing. So don't watch it to get in a good mood.
Okay. I'll watch it when I'm already in a bad mood.
Yeah, like when you're like, fuck the world.
Yeah, this is a good one just to...
Right?
Yeah.
It's like when I...
Bring it home.
Yeah, it's like I watch Taxi Driver when like I'm just so mad at people out there. I'm like, let's fucking wash them all away with a big flood.
But can we just say that is, I believe, one of the biggest reasons that film has survived and continues to thrive.
Yeah.
Because we feel this on a deep primal level, like... No one's doing anything,
Yeah.
And sometimes you just get angry at this idea that it's not changing quick enough and I'm going to do something.
I think if you think of movies as like if you see yourself in a movie character and the movie character does something crazy, that doesn't mean that you would do that same crazy thing. It's like that is your daydream.
Well,
that is what you wish you could do, but you never will.
True.
And that's why people watch action films, because they want to just go blow shit up, but they're not going to get away with it. So they get their thrills watching. Like they want to drive their cars really fast, but they know it's dangerous and they'll probably kill themselves. So they just watch Fast and Furious. Like that's how we get our kicks.
Well, we were just talking about this before we started rolling tonight. Are we kind of getting lost in this streaming sort of age with and the rise of Disney and Marvel to the detriment of society? I came across this Terry Gilliam quote. Actually, you know what? I'm going to read it just because I think it might just spark a bit of a debate here. What I don't like is that we all have to be superheroes to do anything worthwhile. That's what makes me crazy. That's what these movies are saying to young people. And to me, it's not confronting the reality of, the quote-unquote human condition. I can't fault them for the sheer spectacle, except it's negative. You still have to blow up another city.
I think he's right in a generalization. It's like saying all action films are dumb, but we know there's Die Hard. And we know there's Predator. Like, we know there's really good versions.
Yes.
How many do you think he's actually seen?
I mean, less than half a dozen. Less than half a dozen.
Like
that's probably
5.
optimistic.
5. Okay? The way it works is like you dive in. The films are like more like a TV series.
Right.
It's like, are you going to judge a 14 or a 20 episode plus network TV series if you've only seen 4 episodes? It might on the surface look like the dumbest piece of shit sitcom, but the more invested you get in the characters, the more you fall in love with it, the more you like it, the more you actually do see character arcs and human condition stuff being explored.
Okay.
I've actually been quite impressed with how some of the films have moved me.
Well, I agree
I've squirted a tear in some of them.
to that notion of, yes, on an emotional level, yes, I do get moved at times.
Yeah.
But it feels to me that where I agree with Terry Gilliam on this is this idea that the stakes aren't as honest simply because they can fly, they can punch, they can.
But there's always a weakness to the
kick.
power written in somehow. So there is always, like, the hero needs to go through drama, right? Like, we need to know that they can die, and the good films do that.
But again, the stakes aren't relatable on.
Well, they're life or death.
They are life or death, but the good guy never dies.
Yes, because they have to be franchised.
Right, but do you see what I mean about this notion of when a commercial choice gets in front of reality?
But you knew when you were seeing a Batman film that
I'm
he
not-
wasn't going to die. Why are the Nolan films acceptable, but the Marvel films aren't? Just because they were directed by a hoity-toity English, like a serious filmmaker?
No, I still think. I think the Batmans that Nolan directed are respected on a very similar level, if not the same,
Well, look,
as the Marvel universe.
I think they're probably better if I had to pick.
No, but I'm just sort of getting at this bigger idea of that he believes that there's no. I think, and the quote goes on, but he sort of talks about that because of the rise of this type of movie, there's just less room to make the types of movies that we grew up with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
In
and
the
that-
80s
yeah.
and 90s.
Yeah.
That no longer have a place in the traditional or, production exhibition.
Yeah.
It's that tricky thing because, and when I sort of talk about these things, I try to look at them outside of my body.
Yeah.
Outside of my
Yeah.
history
Well,
as a lover of movies. So I look at someone who that movie is really targeted for, a young millennial that's starting out, where we were 10, 15 years ago. It's almost like the escape that we find more and more with these movies is just a reality for kids today.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's their norm today.
So it's not
But
an escape for them.
Superheroes are our modern Greek myths. Like, Kevin Smith talks about this all the time.
What?
He's like, Jesus was just the first superhero.
Whoa.
He's like, that dude had powers. That's why everyone loved the guy. But it's still the same application. It's believing it's believing blindly in something, not having any evidence that it exists.
That's true.
But wanting it to be real. And so that, to me, I'm not surprised that these films are doing so well, because I think it plays to that. But I think that's a sign of the times, and it's like, if people weren't going to them in droves, they wouldn't keep making them.
That's a really great retort, and I think that's actually it's actually very honest. What Kevin Feige and the Marvel sort of team have done very well is adapt to a new world, and they've done it very well. And I think they're the most successful producers of all time.
Well, he's basically done them all.
Yeah.
Like,
But
he's like
as
lead
in-
producer on all of them, and most of them he's the only producer that's credited, and he's masterminded that whole thing. So he's kept all the styles consistent.
Yes, very much. And you
which-
feel that.
If nothing else, if Marvel has helped keep butts in cinema seats, to me, I feel like
That's true.
that's
actually
also
an
important,
interesting-
because where would cinema be realistically? Do you think it would be thriving if the Marvel films weren't around? Like, even if they had those slots, or would people just with TV be like, but why should I go to the movies to watch a $20 million legal thriller? Cinema is a form of church for some people, and it would be a shame if there wasn't always that way to, like, if that became something so niche that there was only, like, I don't know, well, I don't even want to think about it. It's really sad to me. I'm not a religious person. It's like, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's like suddenly if all the churches disappeared, all the temples disappeared.
Well, look, I think
And
we
just feeling
can
lost.
we can most likely empathize with, say, a churchgoer. You know, I can only imagine, especially in big cities, that the attendance rate over 30 years
has dwindled.
I can only imagine it has. You know?
Do you think so?
Oh yeah, very
And
much.
and they started
100 years ago, that was where you would go if you went to a new city. You'd go to the church to find your friends, to find the local pastor, to let them know that you're going to be part of the congregation. And so, if you can imagine that, I see that very much as having dissolved in relevance in our climate, but. Of course, there's always going to be room for it.
This is sad. This is bumming me out, man.
And
I feel like I need a shot of whiskey just to cheer me the fuck up.
Fuck, I mean, if you're listening to this in 2035, we hope it's good news. You have some good news for us.
And I'll take whatever it comes with. Like if someone's like blowing air in my face and tickling my feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting like cotton sticks in my ears, and I'm just like, this is how I gotta fucking watch it.
Just like injecting us with like nutrients to,
Yeah. It's like the wellness world has paid to bolster as four-walled the theater experience, so that you come in and you're like, every ad is for a retreat.
Oh my god, you're getting like a mani and pedi, by a robot. Anyway, on that note, we're gonna bid you adieu, and until next time.
Go to therapy. Should that be our sign off? Should it be like, until next time, go to therapy?
I was thinking,
or is that too judgy?
Or could it be really funny? Like we ended almost like it's the end of a consult. Like the end of an hour of therapy, almost like, and that's the hour or
time's up.
Time's up. That's really good.
You can. You can
pay at the counter.
I got the pay wave now, or I can email you. Is an email invoice okay? I can do pay wave. It's fine.
Venmo?
I don't really take checks anymore.
Anyway, that's it for us.
Time's up.
Adios.